Strange Days is a 1995 released science fiction thriller directed by Kathryn Bigelow.
Yes, it's set, it was made in 95, but it's set in 1999, which at the time was, the future, the millennium, all that business. But now it's...
2000, was it something K? What was it?
2K.
2K.
Now it's ancient history, 20 years ago.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
So yeah, the film revolves around this technology which, didn't exist in 1995 and still doesn't exist now, not in the way that it is in the film, but it's basically a device that can record the experience that somebody's having, their view of something, and records it to a mini disc, which in 1995 were like the latest tech. Yeah. Now no one cares about mini disc. But anyway, it records this, and then these sort of clips are sort of sold as like almost like a virtual reality kind of thing, but obviously better because it is somebody's actual life experience. So any sort of thing. And the film opens with an armed robbery of a Chinese restaurant that's being, that somebody is wearing one of these squids, I think it's called, isn't it? It does stand for something, I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
But that's what they call them. And it's sort of like this gel, like a hairnet almost. Yeah, and we see it from the viewpoint of one of these, one of the people perpetrating this robbery. And then we cut to Ralph Fiennes' character, Lenny Nero, who is an ex-cop who now deals on the black market with these clips that are recorded. Yeah, we meet his girlfriend, or his ex-girlfriend rather, played by Juliette Lewis, called Faith, and she's now with a music mogul called Philo Gant, who's played by Michael Wincott. While he's in a bar with his friend Max, who's a private investigator, played by Tom Sizemore, associate of his, a prostitute by the name of Iris, comes in, all upset and really wants to speak to him, but unfortunately gets distracted. His car's being towed, and then the police are there, and she legs it because we've previously seen her being chased by the police, so we know that she's in some sort of trouble. Then we meet his other friend Mace, who's like a bodyguard / limo driver, and he winds up at a club where someone leaves one of these discs for him, and it's the first person rape and murder of this prostitute. So, and the story goes on from there. Why she was murdered, what she was mixed up in, and things like that. And there's lots of different threads. In the background, there's a rapper who's like very anti-police and things like that, called Jericho One, who's played by Glenn Plummer, and all these sort of different threads start to come together as Lenny investigates this murder. Yeah,
and I suppose you should say that. So when he receives that disc of the murder of the prostitute, that's actually the kind of the thing with it is that he's put the thing on.
Yeah.
On her head, so she basically
she can see herself.
herself die, which makes
quite
it more
horrific.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of there's lots of themes that come up in this film, and voyeurism is definitely one of them.
Definitely, yeah.
Obviously, rape and racism, abuse of power, police corruption, all those things. There's a lot of things going on in this film. Actually, a lot. And it's kind of worth seeing a couple of times to really get your head around everything, I think. But it's a really good film. This was a strong contender for us, in the 90s when it came out. I remember seeing it when it came out or around that time. Had been a big fan of I am a big fan of the original Point Break, also directed by Kathryn Bigelow.
Yeah.
I think she was married to James Cameron, who wrote this.
Yeah, he wrote the story and then co-wrote the screenplay.
I think he wrote it in the 80s.
Yeah.
Or came up with the idea in the 80s, and then nothing really went ahead. And then the whole Rodney King thing happened, and I think that's when Kathryn Bigelow kind of picked back up on the story, and they put this idea together. And so you do, like I said, the film features kind of abuse of power and police corruption and things like that going on there.
So yeah, it's another one of those films where future LA is depicted as like this crime-ridden cesspool, a bit like Demolition Man and Predator 2 and things like that. All of which, their futuristic setting is now in the past, and LA isn't quite like that.
Yeah, and I also found the tone of the tone of this film to me reminds me a lot of The Crow. It felt like that kind of dark, everything's. I mean, practically most of the film is shot at night, set at night as well, obviously.
Well, that's when Lenny does his business. Yeah, I think he sleeps during the day and just goes out at night and tries to sell his discs.
He's a night crawler at the end of the day, isn't he? So it's got that kind of Crow feeling going on there. But I think it's a really interesting film, and I think again it's one of these films that kind of is slightly prophetical of where we are now. I mean, the whole obviously we don't live in a world where you can just plonk something in your head and shut your eyes and see it like some kind of LSD trip. But it's actually it's quite. I mean, obviously back in the 90s we had VR, we had that big VR headset that they kind of tried to sell and didn't really make much from. But of course, back in those days, it was all very much CGI generated. It was computer graphic generated in these VR units. Now, of course, we are in a world where we have the Oculus Rift, and although a lot of it is computer game generated, we are now in a world where we have the 360 camera that plays people like GoPro do and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, you can go on YouTube and watch all manner of videos where somebody's plonked a camera on the top of their helmet and just and
filmed in PO,
snowboarded down a hill or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can put this thing on and you can now look around and you can see real life in your eyes, like you could in Strange Days. And even to the, obviously, as with everything, the sex market gets hold of these things.
Yep.
And you've got the whole, I suppose, pornography in 360, which is some of the plot, some of the ideas in this film. Obviously Lenny is selling these as drug trips in a way.
I mean, obviously it's a little bit more, because it taps straight into your brain. Not only can you see what's happening, but you can feel it as well.
You can feel the senses as well, yeah, exactly.
So it's like an all-encompassing...
So in a way, I mean, there's also a bit of David Cronenberg going on there as well, like Videodrome or Existence and things like that. There's that kind of connecting to a virtual world in a sense. So I think from that point of view, it's very interesting. The film itself was a bit of a flop.
It was, when
it came out, but I think it's kind of gone on to become... I think Roger Ebert actually suggested it could go on to become kind of a cult film, and... I think possibly it has hit that status.
I think definitely underappreciated when it came out, and I think it was relevant when it came out, and I think it's still, sadly, a lot of the themes in it are still relevant now.
Definitely so. And it's also, I mean, it's a very technical film. There's a lot of the shots in there, a lot of the when you've got this device on your head, the squid, it is filmed in point of POV, and obviously nowadays it's very easy to do that with, say, a GoPro camera. But in those days it was much harder, and so there was a lot of kind of technical planning that had to go in to film the kind of those first person scenes. And there's the whole opening shot. I don't know if it's it's not one take, but it looks like one take. And there's a lot of preparation involved to put that scene together and other scenes in the film.
I mean, of course, now we've had a whole film like that with. Have you seen Hardcore Henry?
No, I didn't see that. No,
but yeah, the whole film is in first person.
Person, yeah.
It's a unique experience, shall we say?
I'm sure it is. So I think technically this film's really good. I mean, it's shot beautifully. I mean, obviously, Kathryn Bigelow went on. I mean, was it 7 years ago she won the Oscar for The Hurt Locker? She's a very interesting filmmaker. She's always been an interesting filmmaker. We're big fans of Point Break, a classic film. The old one, of course, not the new one. But the original Point Break is a great film.
It's a classic.
It is a classic movie, and Kathryn Bigelow, she knew what she was doing. I mean, she had been married to James Cameron, who obviously we all know who he is, but I think she's gone on to do some really interesting work. And this is definitely one of them, but probably one that's maybe slipped by the wayside a little bit. It's got some great performances. Ralph Fiennes doing a great performance. I mean, he's just directed is it White Crow? Yeah, it's just come out about the ballet dancer. What's his name? Nureyev, that guy. And of course, you didn't mention it's Angela Bassett that plays.
I didn't mention that. No, I think she is the standout. I think in this, she's just absolutely, first class. I mean, she's, Lenny is kind of an anti-hero. While he's got some morals, there's a lot of lingo in this film about the sort of the squid and the clips that they record, and they call any clip that involves death is a blackjack.
That's right.
And
Lenny snuff type.
Yeah, movie, basically, and Lenny doesn't deal in those, so that's his moral. Anything else goes, but no, he won't. He doesn't deal in death. Although he does actually buy one, doesn't he? In the end,
he does. Yes,
because he negotiates a cheaper price for it, so he hasn't got that many morals. But I think Ralph Fiennes. I mean, apparently they originally wanted, or James Cameron wanted Andy Garcia for the role because he wanted him to be a little bit sleazier and slimier, but Kathryn Bigelow wanted. I think she'd seen Ralph Fiennes in Schindler's List, and while obviously he plays an utter bastard in that, she obviously brought something to that role that she thought he could bring to bring to Strange Days, and he is a bit sleazy, but he is quite a sympathetic character, because he does have some morals and he does care about his friends up to a point. Although, Angela Bassett's character does have a go at him for basically using her to be driven around the town in his limo. But I think, he's kind of the anti-hero, but she is definitely, the heroic character in there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
kind of his moral compass, and tries to say, look, stop watching these clips, because he also watches clips of his ex-girlfriend constantly and can't let go of the past, and she just you've got to stop watching this because it's not healthy.
Yeah, no, I think he's really good. I actually read, I think it was on IMDb, I read someone had written a review on the film, and this chap compared Ralph Fiennes to James Woods, which I think he's is almost channeling a little bit of James Woods going on, especially if you go back to the Cronenberg link of Videodrome and things like that. I could see where he was coming from that. There's a bit of James Woods in there, but he does it really well. And I mean, it's got a great cast, this film. Like we said, we've got Michael Wincott, always great at playing the bad guy, turned up in Robin Hood, and was he in The Crow?
He was in The Crow, the year before
the original,
this,
wasn't he? The first Crow, that's right. And he played a kind of a similar...
He was quite similar in this.
Maybe that's why I'm... Well,
I mean, he had the same long hair, I think, didn't he, in The Crow? He was a bit more of a bastard in The
Crow. I think the similarities between this and The Crow was him. They're that kind of dark American city,
and
but also the soundtrack. I mean, we're in 90s. You've got a lot of soundtracks that feature a lot of music, like actual rock songs, and we tended to be in either hip hop and metal territory, and there's both on here.
Yeah, I think they wanted to make it quite diverse soundtrack.
And so obviously you've got that kind of street, urban Jericho one character, so you've got the hip hop side of things in there. There's quite a few British acts. You've got Tricky on there, Skunk and Nancy, they're in the film.
Yep.
And that's another thing, there's quite a few, especially at the end, there's this big kind of New Year party thing that's going on, and so you've got different groups playing. You've got some rave kids doing their thing, and then there's this big a metal concert going on with the band Testament playing, and then I think Skunk and Nancy are playing at another point. So it's very it's 90s. It feels very 90s. It's also interesting that you've got Juliette Lewis plays a singer in a rock band, and she's there on stage singing, doing her own vocals, because of course she then went on to have a band.
Juliette and the Licks.
Juliette and the Licks, so she's doing her own singing, and it feels a bit grungy, that music that she's doing in the film. But because she's performing herself, it feels real and natural. I think it's a great film. Then you got other people. You got William Fichtner, one of the cops in there, and what's his...
Vincent D'Onofrio.
Yeah, from Full Metal Jacket. You'd all know him from that. It's got a great cast.
And Tom
Sizemore, of course.
Who's a cassette. Well, I mean, so many 90s. It's a very 90s cast, really, isn't it?
It's a very 90s.
Unsurprisingly, because it was made in the 90s.
It's a very 90s feeling film, but I think it's one of the better ones.
Yeah, definitely.
And if you like probably films like The Crow, but possibly The Matrix,
it is kind of a noir as well. So it's a Blade Runner as well. Obviously, Blade Runner is far more futuristic, but it shares the kind of feel, a style, kind of just the sort of futuristic noir.
And of course, talking of music and the soundtrack, the film itself, Strange Days, is named after the Doors song. Clever, eh?
Well done.
Yeah, wasn't that good of me? Yeah.
Who says we don't plan these at all?
Yeah. Anyway, so do you have the film on disc?
I do, yeah.
I've got it somewhere as well.
I mean, I had it on DVD.
On Blu-ray.
I recently picked up the German Blu-ray. I mean, it is over in the UK. It was cut. It always has been. It was cut in the cinema. It was cut on VHS, cut on DVD, and they released it on Blu-ray. I think last year, and it was still cut. I mean, I think it's about 14 seconds, and it is cut to the rape scene. I think so. You're not missing anything, particularly great, but it's it's still cut. So I mean, it is unpleasant to watch, but it kind of
I think that's one thing that they did. I think was brought up in a lot of the reviews at the time, was that it was considered quite misogynistic. But then, of course, on the flip side of that, I think some people were saying if a man had directed this, they would have considered it misogynistic. But of course, it's a woman directing it. So.
I mean, it's not it's not done for thrills or kicks. It serves a purpose in the story.
No, definitely.
So as unpleasant as it is to watch, well, it's meant to be. It's not supposed to be an enjoyable scene.
No, and I think that's especially interesting where the voyeuristic nature of the film comes into play, because voyeurism at its core is usually a sexual act, and,
Yeah.
and you want it to be gritty for that full kind of impact of the plot to come across.
And it shows, any technology, however great it is at the start, it always get corrupted in some way. So, I mean, I think they say in the film that the technology was created by the
CIA, the FBI.
Yeah, something like that, to replace the wire.
The wire, the radio wire.
And of course, it gets into the black market. So I don't think it's something that's on sale to everybody, but obviously people do have these devices.
Well, I mean, Lenny himself is an ex-cop, isn't he?
Yeah.
As is, I think, Tom Sizemore's character. Yeah. So they would have had access to these things. Yeah.
So anyway, yeah. So I got the German one, which is uncut, and they released the 20th anniversary edition, obviously back in 2015, which has got a Blu-ray in it with the film on it, and a DVD which has got all the extras on it. I don't know why they decided to separate them, but they did. But yeah, it's got. I mean, I think there's always been a decent amount of extras for this film, even back in the DVD days. So I don't think there's anything particularly new, but you've got some scene-specific commentaries and things like that, and a few making-ofs. But I think there's a Blu-ray in the US as well. But I went for the German one because I managed to pick it up quite cheap.
So that was Strange Days, and as always, if you enjoyed the video, let us know in the comments below.
Yep, hit the subscribe button up there if you enjoy what we watch, and don't forget to hit the bell button for the notifications. Check out some other videos over there. Find us on Twitter and Facebook, and come back next week for another one.